Furina has been out for a while now, so a lot of different compositions have been explored, and these are the top 5 most popular teams based on the latest community data. Probably one of the most unique comps to come out thanks to Furina, Mono Hydro, or at least Triple Hydro, has had an amazing reception so far. Now, the first variation utilizing Furina consists of Kokomi, Yelan, and Xingqiu. Yes, this is a pure Mono Hydro comp, and Kokomi acts here as a driver. In fact, her damage is actually not that bad for a driver, especially if you equip her with the Clam set, which periodically produces about 17,000 bubble pop damage, at least with my build. One other thing that's really unique with Furina is that because her burst's damage buff is almost identical to Elemental Goblet, you can actually give Kokomi HP Goblet, which will both boost her healing and damage when she's in burst mode. This is actually something you'll see happen often. Furina's burst at talent level 9 or 10 becomes so good that it becomes viable for many damage dealers to go with percent stat goblets instead, like attack, HP, or defense, depending on how these scale. Now, surprisingly enough, even with a team of 4 Hydro units, if you strictly go for just damage builds and ignore energy recharge, there will be problems with activating everyone's burst off cooldown, so either getting some extra energy recharge or equipping 1 or 2 Favonius weapons fixes this problem. On the flip side, the infamous donut feels good on Kokomi, but you can always just go with Prototype Amber. However, since there is no grouping with this comp, you could go for Kazuha, Sucrose, or Venti instead of either Yelan or Xingqiu to add some strong crowd control and apply that delicious resistance shred. Or you could go with Jean instead of Kokomi, which results in Jean applying VV Shred on enemies, while at the same time, compared to Kokomi, the fanfare buildup is much faster, since Jean's one-time heal from the burst can easily achieve max fanfare points, especially if the team is below 25% health when starting a new rotation. Now, another amazing team is viable with Archaic Petra Noelle. Yes, you heard it right. By giving Noelle this artifact set, she can easily pick up Hydro Crystallized Shards and enable a whopping 35% Hydro damage boost for the team. Truthfully, Archaic Petra's biggest downside is that the character who uses it needs to be the one who picks up the shards from the ground. But because Noelle spends a lot of time on field to heal the team and deal damage, now Archaic Petra feels super good, and it's brain dead easy to grab the crystallized shards with her. In fact, you could even go with Goro in a comp like this. Yes, I know this is no longer Triple Hydro, but Goro's burst can pull in the shards, and he will provide a significant damage boost to Noelle, and more importantly, his geoparticles will be invaluable for the maid, since she doesn't generate any by herself. Finally, as a free-to-play variation, Furina, Xingqiu, Barbara, and then either Sucrose, Hydro Traveler, or Hazo as the last slot is a pretty strong comp as well. Now for this showcase, I went with Hazo, who is also equipped with the Viridescent set, since his raw damage output is pretty good, especially if you give Barbara Thrilling Tales who can then buff Hazo. Obviously, the biggest drawback here is that Barbara's skill does not generate particles, so energy management is important here. If you don't want to use Barbara, you can go for a semi-free-to-play variation that becomes a freeze team, and this is achieved with either Mika or Charlotte, while the other 3 Hydro slots are Furina, Xingqiu, and then either Yelan, Ayato, or Mona. Honestly, the options to build Mono Hydro or Triple Hydro teams are vast, especially because as of making this video, the first site of Abyss 12 includes many pyro enemies and shields that you can break easily. Now, this next team core has absolutely skyrocketed Baizhu into stardom, so let's talk about it in this next part after a quick message. Thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. War Thunder is the most comprehensive combat vehicle game ever made. It features more than 2,000 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships that you can collect and use in dynamic PvP battles while enjoying incredible graphics and details in 4K resolution. And I know a lot of you will love this, there's even an anime-styled voice packs you can enable for your tanks. So whether you like Girls in Panzer or Strike Witches, War Thunder offers intense PvP battles at various immersion levels for all playstyles. But personally, I love the game's community. You can customize your war machines with thousands of anime-related skins that are made by the player base. You can even join the community to create your own skins. And you can start playing War Thunder right now on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox by using my link in the description. And if you're new or haven't played the game for 6 months, you can claim the Body Pillow Pack, which includes multiple premium vehicles, a premium account, and a Dakimakura for that extra anime bling. But this pack, along with other bonuses, is only available for a limited time, so download War Thunder now. We all know Hyper Bloom is an extremely powerful comp that doesn't take much to build, but thanks to Furina, I've seen some insane reports coming in that Baiju's usage has grown incredibly well. Now, this team isn't the only one responsible for Baiju becoming popular, but it is extremely comfy to play, and it's made up of Alhaitham, Elemental Mastery Raiden, and Baiju with Furina. By slapping Prototype Amber on this sick doctor, he fixes his energy requirements, while at the same time, everyone gets healed by the weapon's passive. Don't get me wrong, his skill can heal everyone just fine and it has a low cooldown, but you can potentially gain 72 fanfare points with just Prototype Amber, so the faster you can reach maximum fanfare, the better it is for everyone's overall damage. Now, to me personally, it's kinda weird to see Hyper Bloom team with Alhaitham that doesn't have Nahida in it. But one thing I see a lot of people forget about Baiju is that he actually boosts Dendro reaction damage with his passive, and with the current amount of HP he has with my build, Alhaitham can deal nearly 30% better quicken damage, since he will be the active character for the majority of time. Now, for specific artifact sets, Baiju definitely needs to be equipped with Deepwood, because this will increase both Alhaitham's and Hyper Bloom's damage, while Alhaitham could potentially go with Hunter's set, since with Furina, nearly every on-field DPS character can utilize this set now. Although keep in mind, something like Elemental Sands, specifically for Alhaitham, will be super valuable to increase his quicken damage. And as for team variations, surprisingly enough, Tignari instead of Alhaitham works really well here. All of Furina's benefits that apply to Alhaitham apply to Tignari, and because Baiju provides shielding even if it's paper thin, it is good enough to keep Tignari from getting interrupted when he's doing his usual triple charge attack. And when it comes to free-to-play variations, instead of Baiju, you can go for Yao Yao, and instead of EM Raiden, you can go for Cookie. Obviously, there's gonna be enough healing here to quickly reach max fanfare thanks to both Yao Yao and Cookie, so if you do have a spare Nahida lying around somewhere, you can use her instead of Yao Yao, but because Cookie's healing is only single target, you'll want to utilize yet again Prototype Amber with Nahida, so she can heal the team as well. Overall, just like with the Hydro teams showcased previously, there's a ton of variations you can go for here as well, but the main takeaway, in my opinion, is that Furina's boosting and off-field damage does wonders for Hyper Bloom, even if the boosting does not increase transformative reaction damage, but it's still impactful enough for other damage types. Going back to the classics, Vaporized teams are on the rise again. I mean, they were always awesome, but Furina brings a ton of value to them. Now, starting off, probably the most comfy and easiest to pilot team right now is Hu Tao, Yelanar Xingqiu, and Jean. It's pretty simple really. Furina by herself cannot enable vapes for Hu Tao, so a second Hydro unit is here to finish the job, while Jean's initial one-time heal quickly builds up fanfare. Then, you just use Hu Tao and dish out strong charge attacks, although keep in mind for the most part, Jean will shred enemies' Hydro resistance thanks to Virdescent set, so Hu Tao will need to live with just Furina's buffing. But vape teams can also function with Charlotte. This new healer can enable melt vapes for Hu Tao. Yes, it might be annoying sometimes to stand there for a few seconds to take a photo of your enemies with her skill, but she is a super solid healer, just like Jean. Her initial heal is strong, and if her build is good enough, meaning she can heal for a lot, you can then give her Thrilling Tales and switch to Hu Tao to get that massive attack buff. Now, we also gotta talk about Yoimiya. Honestly, I've seen a lot of reports saying that Furina is enough to sustain Hydro on enemies so Yoimiya can vape them, but from my own experience, it really matters how you set up the rotation and how many enemies there are, so it's not always consistent. However, one strong and unique comp that works well is with Double Jean, you know, because Jean and Yunjin. Okay, I'll show myself out. But yeah, Yunjin's normal attack boost is strong here, and if you give her Favonius Lance, she can also become sort of a battery too. However, as I said before, Hunter's set is super valuable in Furina teams, and it feels like Yoimiya gains such a huge advantage with it. The pieces I have equipped on her are pretty decent, and she ends up with 260% crit damage and 91% crit rate, which is pretty insane because I could still get better Hunter pieces. Now, you might have noticed she has cracked Elemental Sands here. Well, that's because this team variation of just using Furina with Xingqiu or Yelan, as well as either Jean or Sayu, makes sure you can actually vape Yoimiya's normal attacks consistently, and boy do they hit hard, while at the same time, it's pretty easy to pilot this team. Again, Furina teams have an insane amount of variety, and this also applies to vape comps. Like for example, you could even go with Mika as a healer, who boosts normal attack speed, which is great for Yoimiya, and his big initial heal, yet again, helps achieve fanfare stacks fast. Now, for a little something exotic, let's talk about this Burgeon team with Wriothesley, Baiju, Xiangling, and Furina. I'm not gonna lie. While this team is strong, the rotation takes some time getting used to, and you will also need to sometimes mix it up, because often Xiangling might not have enough energy to trigger her Pyronado. You see, as sacrilegious as it may be, you actually build Elemental Mastery Xiangling here, and unfortunately in my case, Energy Recharge did not bother showing up on substats, so you gotta be creative and use something like Catane Crossbear, and or a lot of Favonius weapons with the team. But most of the time, you'll still need to constantly keep switching between characters to funnel the particles to someone who needs energy for their burst. But once you perfect the energy requirements and can land those bursts off cooldown, it just feels so satisfying to play this team. Wriothesley's cryo application enables so many reactions, but to keep it simple, Burgeon, Melt, and even Freeze will coexist with each other from time to time, while at the same time, Baiju's shielding, Furina's damage increase, and pretty good on-field damage that's coming from Wriothesley will ensure you can take out even the most annoying enemies. I think this team has a pretty high skill ceiling, at least for now, but it feels super rewarding when everything goes smoothly. Now, as a free-to-play variation, you can go for Charlotte instead of Wriothesley, but honestly the team just doesn't feel that good, so unfortunately, this is a premium comp with all things considered, unless someone comes up with a similar variation later on. Worst case scenario, you can go with Yao Yao instead of Baizhu, and if you do not want to betray your Xiangling's build, you can also just go with Toma instead, who can take care of shielding, and he is the OG Burgeon guy anyway. Now, before we get to the 5th team, I want to showcase some comps quickly as a bonus mention. First, we have the AFK Archon Hyper Bloom team, made up of Zhongli, Elemental Mastery Raiden, Nahida, and Furina. It's about time we had autoplay in Genshin. I mean, Star Rail has it, so why not do the same for Genshin, right? Yeah, this team is super funny to play with. And obviously, because there is no healer in the team, you'll definitely want Prototype Amber on Nahida, so you can heal at least some amount. And speaking of funny, Chi-Chi has finally risen from the meta grave. Sort of. Anyway, if you swap out Zhongli from the Archon team with Chi-Chi, now you have a lot of healing and some cute but small damage numbers coming from our favorite 50-50 zombie. And the thing is, Chi-Chi with Clam set is quite good, and you can even equip her with either Favonius or Sacrificial Sword, so she can generate particles or extend her skill's duration. Heck, the skill can even freeze enemies, so it's really a fridge Chi-Chi comp we're talking about. I know, crazy. Then there's Forward Vape Furina team. If you want to see big damage numbers coming from her, just use Benny, Xiangling, and Jean for that sweet Sunfire combo, and enjoy the occasional funny damage number from her Miss Krabby. Or if you want to go back to basics, you can also just build the usual national comp with Benny, Xiangling, Xingqiu or Yelan, and Furina. It's not the most broken team in this list, but it gets the job done, and we do need to pay our respects to national archetype. And then, of course, taser comps with Furina are pretty awesome too, especially if you use Kokomi as a driver and equip her with the Hakushin Ring, which then ends up boosting both Hydro and Electro damage for the team. Finally, Freeze is also a viable comp, especially in the Korean Abyss, so variations like Ayaka Shenhe Jin or Charlotte Ayaka Kazuha are pretty amazing on the first side of the chamber of the Korean Abyss. Honestly, there's a ton more teams I would like to showcase, so press the like button on this video and let me know in the comments if you would like to see part 2. I think the time has finally come to talk about just how busted together are Neuvillette and Furina. And when I say busted, I mean how brain-dead easy they are to play. Seriously, one of the best comps right now is made up of Neuvillette, Jean, Fischl, and Furina. I think one of the best things right now about Neuvillette is that his laser is extremely good against those annoying Pyro Lectures, since if you don't group them, most of the time you will deal damage to only one of them. But the laser can easily pierce both at the same time. Not only that, but you could, for example, swap out Fischl with Beidou, whose burst works with Neuvillette, and then maybe equip a couple of Favonius weapons to the team so Beidou can trigger her burst consistently, and then enjoy a massive damage increase, thanks to how effective her burst becomes with 2 or more targets. Of course, if you have Yae Miko, she also works as a perfect member for this team. But the best thing about Neuvillette and Furina comps is that the last 2 slots are actually super flexible. You can literally go with any healer, maybe besides few, but with someone like Charlotte, now you can freeze enemies. Baizhu, say hello to bloom reactions and shielding, something that's usually super important to Neuvillette, since he can get interrupted and lose a ton of potential damage he could have otherwise dealt with his laser. Or how about Hyper Neuvillette? Mono with Prototype Amber and Kazuha both provide massive damage increase to him, and I kid you not, the laser becomes just too wild here with the amount of damage you can deal. Like, you can even see the most recent usage statistics, which of course, you should always take with a grain of salt, but Nivelette with Furina are literally the top units right now because they work so well together, and in terms of lore, this makes me happy. Let's be honest here, I could have mentioned so many more teams and variations with Furina because the amount of flexibility you gain when building a comp with Furina and a healer is insane, although some comps didn't feel that great to me, like with Wanderer for example. You have to swap out a shielder for Furina, and while the damage is so much better, it just doesn't feel that good when Wanderer has no resistance to interruption, and he can get knocked around so easily. Also, there were teams like Sino Quickbloom with Baiju that felt really good, but at the same time, it's really just Xingqiu swapped out with Furina. So Sino players who obtained Furina already knew this isn't a groundbreaking discovery. But yeah, I hope I covered the majority of new Furina teams, and if I missed something, let me know in the comments. Also, as a reminder, thanks again to War Thunder, make sure to download it for free by using my link in the description. It's available on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, and you'll also get a large bonus pack, which is only available for a limited time. Most importantly, you'll help support my channel. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure more teams will get discovered along the way, but these were the top 5 team variations that I found to be pretty popular or innovative, and I wanted to showcase them. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.